Welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest is Petronella McGovern, the best-selling author of 5 psychological thrillers, including her latest novel, Every Time She Wakes. In this episode, Petronella takes us behind the scenes of her writing and publishing journey, from her early love of books and storytelling to building a successful career as an author after working in communications and marketing. We explore how life's pivotal moments and what-if questions inspire her stories, the evolution of her writing process, and the lessons she's learned navigating the competitive world of publishing. Petronella also shares valuable insights on overcoming rejection, embracing feedback, finding your writing community, and balancing creativity with family and everyday life. Whether you're an inspiring author, a published writer, or simply fascinated by the craft of storytelling, there's plenty of wisdom in this conversation. We also discuss the inspiration behind Every Time She Wakes, the importance of continual learning, and why perseverance is one of the most important qualities a writer can develop. So if you've ever wondered what it really takes to build a writing career and thrive in today's publishing industry, you're going to enjoy this episode. So sit back, relax, and listen to my conversation with Petronella. Enjoy. Hey, Petronella, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Lisa.
Anytime. I'm very excited to have you. I know you've got a book that's due to be released a few weeks from now, which is very exciting. And I'm very excited to kind of step into your pathway to becoming an author as well. But before we dive into that, share a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience today.
Okay. I'm Petronella McGovern. I'm the author of, this will be my 5th book coming out, and I write psychological thrillers, sort of domestic suspense. I'm really interested in relationships and families and secrets and betrayals and lies. I don't know where that came from, but so we'll delve into that. Perhaps it's a kind of therapy. I don't know. I've also written 2 nonfiction memoirs for other people, and I used to work in communications and marketing. And I'm published by Alan Numwin, who published all of my books, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. And I was doing some research on you, and I think you've got an outstanding career, and I'm so interested to kind of deep dive into that a little bit more around how you started and maybe your career enhancing you to become that author and get published. So as you know, I like to take it back to the very start. So when did your writing journey begin? How old were you and what did that look like for you?
Well, I was that kid who just read from, when they could read. I just loved reading. It was all I wanted to do. I was the one under the sheets with the torchlight at night, devoured books. I absolutely devoured books. And so I guess I've always been a reader, even more of a reader than a writer. But as soon as I started reading stories, I wanted to write stories. I thought that's great. So early on, I wrote, it depended what phase I was in. If I was in an Enid Blyton stage, I'd write talking animals, and then I'd start writing Secret 7 kind of mystery kids running off to investigate. And then I think I was writing about spaceships, and then so I went through all those phases. But I feel like someone at some point said to me, being an author is not a job. You can't, that's just a hobby. You can't make money from that. That's just something you do on the side. So I felt I've got to get a real job. So I did go into communications. I did a communications degree, and I wrote at uni. I did write some creative fiction and stories, but I sort of then felt I had to go and get a proper job. But so I was working in marketing and advertising. But I was writing on the side. One of the first things I had published was a backpacker story when I was traveling around England. That was kind of half true. What would we call it these days? Creative nonfiction. And then I did, when I was quite young, early 20s, I wrote a Mills and Boon story.
Wow.
It was a short story competition. Well, novella, maybe 30,000 words. And I came runner-up. I got some perfume.
You're lovely.
But in retrospect, romance wasn't quite my thing. I think more twisty stories was more my thing.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I don't know whether we get perfume anymore if you become a runner-up in a competition, but I do like that back in, that's something you get an award for at least. And just stepping on that, I love that question actually around like, what made you start writing in the genre that you're writing in today? And so you trialed romance, wasn't really for you. What was that moment then that you had that pivot to be like, okay, I actually want to start writing psychological thrillers?
Well, I think romance probably was just because there was a competition and there was some money. Because I do remember at uni, I wrote, a murder story about a husband coming home and finding his wife in the bath. So I think I was always interested in that genre regardless. And I think I always read that genre. And then more so after I had kids, and then I needed a book that would just grip me immediately. Like when you don't have much time to read, you want something that just takes you straight in. So I was a bit impatient with slower books. I just wanted thrillers that I could read instantly, get straight in, and keep on going.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And I did love, because I was looking at some of your posts on Instagram because I follow you, and I actually really loved the post that you did around that moment where and let me just kind of reference something specific that you said, that you were invited to 2 weddings, and how you met your husband because you couldn't afford to go to Perth. So you got the bus and went to the other one, and that's how you met your husband. So those kind of sliding door moments, right? Where one road leads you one way, another road, and, it's always meant to be, and how you kind of lean on some of those stories as well. So in terms of inspiration for these stories, where do they typically kind of stem from?
Yeah, well, that post was about the inspiration for my new book, which is about, those moments that a decision you don't realise can change the rest of your life and change the path of your life. My parents emigrated from England here and before I was born, and I always think, who would I be? If I was back in England, who would I be? And down to meeting my husband, who my friend in Perth still talks to me, so that's nice. But yeah, if I had gone to Perth and not to Canberra, would I have these kids? Would I have ever met him? There's all those questions which fascinate me, which was the sort of the basis for this new book, Every Time She Wakes. In that story, we have Suze, who's the main character, and she is being evacuated during a bushfire emergency with her family. And she starts to realise as they're evacuated in this van, they're actually being kidnapped. And then the van crashes and she wakes up and it's 2 weeks before. And no one else remembers, this nightmare that's happened in the van. And she's trying to understand, is it in her head, what's happened? And then it happens again and again and again. And every time she wakes, her life is different. She wakes up to a different life. And so she has to figure out which choice she needs to make to take her back to her real life, the life she wants. And so I just was fascinated by that idea of, as you say, sliding doors. And I think I've always been interested, before the Sliding Doors movie even.
Yes.
I grew up watching Doctor Who and, the idea that you can change time. And I always, even as a kid, I just have so many what ifs about the world. My dad drove for work quite a bit, and I'd think, oh, what if he had a car crash, and what if he didn't come home? And we lived up the road from a prison. I was like, what if the prison inmates got out? What if? All these, which was quite a lot for a 7-year-old.
No, I like that time loop component because it's, I always think, imagine if we woke up tomorrow having experienced something already and we have the opportunity to change it. Would we change it? Or would, it's quite intriguing, isn't it? It keeps you guessing for sure.
And I do think, so I didn't talk to you about my first novel, which was never published, but so I wrote a novel when I was in my 30s. I was on maternity leave with my son and wrote a novel and probably wrote it over. I was working full time and went back to full time work, had a second child, and I was still trying to finish the novel, was trying to get it published, had it knocked back a lot. But nearly got published. So nearly, I went to meetings, people loved it, but it just didn't get to the next step. And I also think about that what if that book was published and it didn't take me another 15 years to get published. But then what sort of writer would I be? What would my life look like now if I'd managed to get that book published? So
what kept you then? Let's go into that a little bit more. So what kept you wanting to write after that first novel that never got published? What was the driver for you to keep going?
So I had written these 2 non-fiction memoirs for other people, which was fun and interesting, but it was their stories. And they were good stories. One was an Olympic memoir from 1956 and one was a sort of travel memoir. And they travelled across from London to Calcutta in 1961 in a Volkswagen Beetle.
Wow.
And did it again in 1996 in the same car. So that was all fascinating. And I think that helped me work out how to structure a novel, how to tell a story. And I was the one who approached publishers. So I got the publishers, I did media releases for them. So I did all of that. Like I did that whole process for these men. And so I knew I could do it. I knew I could write it. And I was sort of when with the first novel, I went to various agents and they said, oh, nonfiction is easier. Just stick with nonfiction. And I was like, no, I want to write my fiction. I want to write my stories. I just enjoyed writing. And I knew if I wasn't writing, I just get really grumpy.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, like, if I just didn't write for a while, which I wouldn't because I was working full time with 2 small children. So it was hard to, and my husband was doing a master's and he was traveling and, it was that kind of time frame. But I think I just kept thinking it's possible and I can do it and I need to do it. And then my mum finally said, why don't you stop trying to get that one published that you've been trying for 10 years to get published and start a new novel. And so I did. And I was doing courses. I mean, I'd done a degree, but I was doing courses all the time. And I found that helpful because it would give me, a deadline to hand a chapter in and I could say to the kids, oh, mum's doing her homework. And it felt kind of, legitimate that I could carve this time out. And then we moved to Sydney and I did a Write Your Novel at the Australian Writers' Centre, which at that point had in-person classes at North Sydney. So I finished that and then, yes, again, tried to get published again. I think coming to Sydney, I sort of learnt more about the industry and I had more friends who were in writing, and through the course I met some publishers, and I think that really helped me understand more about, what the industry was looking for, or how to sell myself, how to kind of sell myself to an agent and to a publisher.
And so you picked up an agent, and what did that look like for you in terms of querying and, getting your first novel published? What was the kind of process for you? What did that look like?
Yeah, well, I think I'd learned a lot from the first time. Well, not enough. I hadn't learned enough, but I'd learned something. I'd learned because I'd sent it to agents, but then I'd also sent it to publishers. And then, so the agents then said, but you've already sent it to publishers, so there's no point. It's already been rejected. So I learned, yes, go to an agent first and, and then go to a publisher. If you wanted to use an agent, I mean, in Australia, you don't have to use an agent.
Yeah.
But I guess I wasn't getting through that slush pile. It just wasn't coming up. And I kept asking around. I did have, through the course, I met a publisher who agreed to read a couple of chapters, not to take it on, but as sort of feedback. Yeah. And she gave me some feedback. And then I think I just thought, I need to do that kind of pitch which says, it's this book meets this book. So I said, this is my first book, 6 Minutes. So I said, it's The Dry meets Big Little Lies, because it was set in Canberra in the kind of on the edge of the bush. And then it was set around a playgroup. So the kids were 4 years old. Yeah. With a sort of family, the mothers and what was going on there. And then I rewrote the first chapter to, I don't know, just really highlight. I think The Dry just was on a very high, The Dry by Jane Harper, and highlighted the kind of bush side of it. And then I asked friends about their agents, and a friend gave me an introduction to her agent. And I think he said yes, thinking he was going overseas and he could just say, yes, I'll read it and do a quick no. And he came back 24 hours later and said, my God, Petronella, I was awake all night. I couldn't stop reading. I want to sign you up and I'm going away in 3 weeks. So we've got to do this quickly. We've got to get everything done. Which was funny after, 15 years.
Yeah. I mean, what an amazing kind of outcome. I mean, all that hard work and effort and determination to finally get your dream. If I was to ask you then, what's one thing you think that you did this time around for your novel to stand out? Is there anything that you would say that highlights that moment?
I think really working extra hard on the first chapter. Yeah. Really, really nailing that first chapter. And I think also knowing what genre it's in. I mean, if your genre is sometimes tricky because if you're writing literary fiction, it doesn't really fit into a genre. I mean, literary fiction is its own genre. But I think if you know what market you're writing for, I think that really helps because it makes it easier for the publishers and the agents to see where it would fit in the market and how it would sell. And I know it's tricky because writing and art is a creative process and publishing and selling is a commercial process, and somehow they go like this badly. Yeah. But it's a commercial reality. They need to sell it. They need to sell a book. Otherwise, they won't publish it. Otherwise, you can just publish it yourself. You know what I mean? So that's the other option. But if you want it published, by a commercial publisher, it needs to fit into a genre. They need to see where it would fit on the bookshelf, who would buy it. And I think part of that is reading widely. You can also read wildly, but making sure you're reading the sort of books that you want to write as well as other books, but definitely knowing where your book would sit among other books.
Yeah, I think you've got to have the knowledge, right? And the love, because I've heard this a lot. You can learn a lot as well through that. And I think one thing I took from what you just shared as well is that you didn't stop learning and upskilling yourself, during that 15 years of then getting that novel published. It was like you did a course with the Australian Writers Centre. Like it's not like you just stopped and kept going the way you were going. I think sometimes having that insider knowledge, connecting with authors, being part of an association, they all help build your skill set, right? And get you ready to put your work out there and feeling that you're in a position for it to be ready to be seen by a literary agent or a publisher. And look at the outcome. For an agent to say they couldn't put your book down, they couldn't go to sleep. I mean, that's a high credit, right?
Very special, yes. Yeah. And I think the other thing is going to book events and literary events, and the Sydney Writers Festival was just on, and I think going to those sorts of events and hearing authors speak, but also when you're at smaller events, there's often, other authors and publishers and agents there, and not necessarily, not to pitch them at the event, but to talk to them and network and get to know people.
Yes.
And then I think that's really helpful too. And you have to be the right sort of person. I mean, some of us authors are very introverts who don't like doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's scary because you're putting yourself out there, and it's you. If you get the rejection, it's not you work for another company. It's like it's yourself, and you've put your personality and your time and your scary at times to put yourself out there.
Yes, it is.
I think that's great. And as you mentioned earlier around getting an intro to an agent as well through a connection. So building your network is very key. And I mean, I've lived in Sydney for many, many years. I did a stint back in the UK for a couple of years. And what I've found is like the author community in the UK and the author community in Australia is very similar. It's like everyone's so welcoming, but everybody knows each other.
Yeah. I know.
Which is lovely.
I went to, I was in England last year and I went to the Harrogate Crime Writers Festival.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone. Well, Chris Hammer was there, so I knew him, but he was there and then he was gone. And so I went up to a group of authors and I said hello. And it was so weird because normally I'd know everyone, so I knew nobody. And then they just took me under their wing and they just took me to drinks and took me here and took me there.
Yeah.
It was so lovely. It was
really lovely. Yeah. And I think now that we have things like Instagram, you can be friends with them, even never met them. And you can build those connections online, which I think is just as amazing as well. Because I think we need more support in the world for authors and more work to be published and put out there on the shelves.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when you are writing at home alone, it can be a very solitary, well, it is a solitary job. That's the main part of the job. I mean, you see something on Instagram and we're at an event or something, but that's 1%. Like,
yes.
So having those connections with other writers, I think is so important. So I've had a number of writing groups where we can send chapters to each other, but even if we're not doing that, we're talking to each other about how to get published or how to do the next thing. So you can share those difficulties together and celebrate together too when things happen.
Yeah. And so in terms of your writing process, what does that look like? How many books do you typically work on in a year? Because your first book came out in 2019, correct? And you're now about to release your fifth book. So typically about one a year, just under.
Yeah.
But what does that look like for you? Do you set yourself an expectation of how many books you want to complete in a year?
Well, I think we did one book a year once, and then my publisher said, that's really that's hard. And I said, it is hard. And, there are amazing authors like Sally Hepworth and Candice Fox who put out a book a year. And it is really hard. Like it's hard to be creatively working on one thing while doing promotion and marketing on the other thing. So in the end we said, I will do it every 2 years, which suits me a lot better. So I I should have written the new one. I should be further along, but I've done, there's been the editing process back and forth, and then there's a lot to do for marketing in terms of writing articles and other things. Normally my process, I think this will be my process. I'll do a first draft probably over 3 to 4 months, and then I will be, editing that mainly, and then a little bit of work on the book that's already underway. So I think at the moment, like, I know what my new book is. I'm so excited to write it, but my head is so full of this current book, Every Time She Wakes, that and the characters, the storyline and how I'm going to talk about it at events. So it's hard to move all that aside.
100%. Yeah. And also, like, you want to enjoy this moment as well, right? That you're now about to have your 5th book be launched into, the world, and you need to ride that wave a little bit, because like you said, writing is so solitary that a lot of the time you are just at home by yourself in front of your laptop, that when your book does go out into the world, like, you should embrace it. Go and, you've got your events to do, network, enjoy it. Because then before you know it, you'll be back to writing.
But I love it. Like, writing the first draft is my favorite. That's my favorite point of the process. But probably when I'm 30,000 words in, like at the very beginning, when you need to make all the decisions about everything about the character, everything. Like I'm talking about in that Instagram post, there are so many decisions. Which way do you go?
Yeah, yeah. Do you plot? Are you a plotter or are you a planster?
I don't. And that's part of the problem. I keep telling myself, because I do so much editing at the end, and the last 2 books, I think I've rewritten the second half of the book in the editing process. So I keep telling myself, do it differently, but and I've done a lot of pre-work on the new one I'm about to write. So hopefully that will help. But for me, the writing actually creates the characters. It stirs everything up in my head and it makes it come to life. Even if I plot everything out, it doesn't work for me that way. It's the actual writing that gives the ideas for me, that develops the characters.
Yeah.
So I will know, like, I'll know the twist. I know the beginning, somewhere in the 2/3 mark, and the twist. That will be kind of what I'll know. And then I'll need to fill in all the bits between those.
Is it easy for you to come up with the character's name, so they come to you?
No. Well, not easily. Well, I know when I've got the right one. So, for example, the new character, Suze, it took me a long time to find her name, because I really wanted it. In my head, she was this person, and I just couldn't find her. So when I come on Suze, I was like, yes, Suze is perfect.
Yeah.
And I had this character in my second book, The Good Teacher, and she was called Jenny. And Jenny, she was just a Jenny. She was absolutely a Jenny. And then my sister-in-law must have seen an early version, and she said, you can't call her Jenny, that's your cousin. I said, no, I know, but this isn't my cousin. This girl's Jenny. And she goes, no, you have to change it. I was like, oh my gosh. And Jenny had been perfect. So it took me a long time to find another name, which was Alison, which was kind of right, but still, she was still Jenny to me. So I need the name before I start. I need to have the name before I even start writing anything. And to me, a name means so much.
Yeah, you can start visualizing what they look like, their personality, their demeanor and everything.
Yeah. And also it can give so much backstory. So in my book, The Liars, the mother has twins and they're called Taj and Sienna. And she accidentally got pregnant when she was sort of 20 and she always wanted to travel the world and she never did. So she called her children Taj after the Taj Mahal and Sienna after the beautiful town in Italy.
Yeah.
Because she was like, I'm going to get to these places one day. I will call my children these names so I get to these places. And so, you can instill so much of the story and the character into a name as well.
I love that. What would you say has been your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge? Well, getting published, I think. I think part of the challenge is, well, there's two. I think there's one thing is about time and managing time. And I also do other paid editing work and I do teaching work online. So sort of managing the creative side versus other work you're doing versus family, I think that is a challenge. And it's not an easy challenge. there are a lot of demands.
Yes.
And I think the other thing is the mindset to keep going. I think as authors, we're always very, we're sensitive souls because we need to put our emotions and our, into the characters and the books. And then, so you have to be a sensitive soul to write, but then you have to be, thick-skinned to put yourself out there and try and get published. And then once you're published, keep, putting yourself out there. And then when people read the book, you're like, oh my God, what will they say? Will they like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a challenge in terms of developing that sort of thick-skinned that's an approach as well. Yeah.
Do you ever read reviews, or have you ever read reviews?
I always read reviews, and everyone tells me to stop it. And I sort of forgot that this month leading up to publication, so Every Time She Wakes comes out on the 30th of June, I stopped sleeping because I start worrying about, oh my gosh, what if people don't like it? What if no one comes to an event? What if?
Yeah.
And I need to stop that. And the early reviews have been amazing. And over the weekend, people, because it was a long weekend, I don't know, people, early bookstagrammers that read early copies, and people sent them loveliest messages and said it was amazing and fantastic. And one woman said, it's one of the best books I've ever read, which made me cry. So, I
should compliment. That's amazing. That must make you feel that it's all worth it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I had another message from someone who talked about how much it affected them on a personal level about decisions they'd made.
Yeah.
And that made me cry too, because it was such a special, it really, you never know how a book is going to connect with somebody, and you don't know anyone's situation. Yeah, and that was a really special message that was sent to me about how it affected them.
If you could change anything in the process, from when you first started to now, is there anything that you would do differently?
Well, see, that's like the whole question of my new book.
But would you? Because you're in a fantastic place, right? Apart from maybe I'd get there sooner, but I mean, the road has led you to now, which is a phenomenal outcome, right? So would you change anything?
No, well, I guess not, because I feel like, it's a learning experience. And the new book, this time loop thing, which I've always wanted to do, but I didn't have the confidence and probably the skill to do it, 4 books ago. And certainly my publisher probably would have said, oh, no, just keep writing in your normal genre, because this is kind of a cross genre. Yeah, I guess each thing is a learning experience. I think what I would have told myself is be brave earlier. I think each time I got a rejection when I was younger, I'd sort of, give up for a while, for a month or two. And I guess because I didn't know so many other authors at that point, that I didn't know that's just part of the process, that rejection. You just have to keep on going. Yeah. And I would have told myself, put more time aside. So when the kids were young and my husband was doing a master's and we're both working full time, there wasn't much time. And I would, like once a month, I would go to the library on a Sunday and write for 4 hours or 5 hours. I'd completely lost track of the story because it had been a month since I'd done that. Yeah. Now I would tell myself, every day, think about the story, even if you don't have time to write. Think about the story. Make a note, in your notebook or your notes app. And so you keep developing the story in your head, and the characters are staying in your head. So when you get the time to write, it's there. You can start straight away. You don't have to go all the way back. So I would get to go to I was living in Canberra. I go to the National Library. I would sit down and have to read my whole novel to work out where I was up to and what the characters were doing and what was going on. Yeah.
That probably took up most of your time, and then you probably only had like 30 minutes left to do some writing.
I'd write 500 words, it'd be time to go home. Yeah.
But it's hard to juggle it all, right? It's like you said, find the time. I know I've spoken to a lot of authors and they're like, oh, if I can fit an hour at the start of the day, then do what I have to do, whether it's a full-time job or kids or anything else to do with family, and then they might do an hour in the evening, and they'll try and keep that momentum going. And you see it everywhere, people like in their cars writing. So I think, just trying to find those small moments each day. Because I've been in your position where, I've left it so long and then I've gone back and I'm rereading it. And as I'm rereading it, I'm editing it at the same time. And I'm like, I haven't even written any additional context. I've just literally read it and done the editing process, which has got me nowhere. So yeah, I try and write as much as I can now and then go back and edit it, because otherwise I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I don't know how you are with those things, but
I
I
think,
kind of want to make sure that it's right all the way along. But yeah, what about yourself?
I'm learning
Yeah,
not to be like that you're better off just writing and getting it out,
yeah,
especially because in an editing process, things get cut. So you
yeah.
might work on a chapter so hard and then it just gets cut.
I know. They're like, change the point of view. Don't add that in. Yeah, it all adds up, doesn't it? And you mentioned, before we step into your novel that's coming out on the 30th of June, which is very exciting, I just want to touch on, because you mentioned that you do some creative writing courses that you teach with the Australian Writers Centre. Share a little bit about that. What made you kind of want to start kind of teaching and coaching in that way?
I think I've done so many courses. I have so much to share now. I also did a master's in creative writing, which was funny because I wanted to do that since my son was born. He must have been about 17 by the time I finally got to do it.
Yeah.
By which time I didn't actually need to do it. And the second week that I was there, I got my publishing contract.
Wow.
So I was like, do I keep doing this master's? And I think we often, try and overqualify ourselves. But I love studying, so I did keep doing it, and I really, really enjoyed it. But it was more theoretical. So there were some people there who I'd think, oh, you should just go to the Australian Writers Centre and do their Write Your Novel course, because that's much more practical. Whereas we had to do theory and write essays, as well as writing the creative writing. But we were doing the analysis behind what makes a short story work and that sort of thing as well. But I really enjoyed it, and I guess I learned quite a lot from that too. And so. Yeah, I love talking about writing. I love helping other people. I read some friends' early drafts, and one friend said to me, who's published lots of books, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you are the best like structural editor of big picture stuff. You're amazing. You're better than any other any paid person I've had at a publishing." Which was nice. And so then I thought, oh well, I do have those skills. So So I will share them. So I really enjoy it. It's so fun to encourage people in terms of, everyone is, not everyone, but the majority of people, I think, are very nervous about showing their work and nervous about letting someone else read it and then how to improve it. But that's one of the best ways of learning, is to share it with someone else. And you need to share it at the right time. So early on, I can't remember which book it was, but I gave a chapter to my husband, and he used to be a journalist, and it was very early in the process, and I gave it to him, and he got the red pen out and he just wrote all over it. And I was like, no, that's not what you were supposed to do. You were both supposed to say, this is a great idea. Go for it. Can't wait to read it. You were not supposed to do this line editing and crossing out. And so yes, you need to be in the right, the right time to share it.
Yes.
But by sharing it, you can learn so much. And every experience a person has of reading your book is different, because they bring their own experiences. So when you share a piece and someone else reads it, they bring their own experiences, their own thoughts. And also, when you're writing it, it's all in your head, and you might think something but not have put it on the page. So I think it's really helpful to have a reader to look at it. So early on in my first book, I had a character, a husband, who was supposed to be nice, and people were supposed to think, oh, he's a bit dreamy, he's lovely. And my editor said, he's a jerk. And I was like, oh, what does that say about my taste in men? But anyway, but I couldn't see that I hadn't got enough of that on the page, that he was supposed to be nice and trustworthy and a good guy. And I left it too kind of in the imagination. So I needed to get more of that on the page. But if she hadn't read that, I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't. I would have assumed he was the nice guy I had in my head.
Yeah, that's great advice. So let's talk about Every Time She Wakes, available on the 30th of June. What's your kind of proudest achievement with this novel?
I'm going to show you a copy, because I just got copies. Oh my gosh, I just got copies. I think the fact that I can actually do it. So, I had this idea for a while, and I just didn't know how, if I could pull it off, because it's a tricky thing where time changes and she ends up in these different versions of her life. I mean, for every book you think creatively, but in this one I really had to push myself further creatively to think outside the square, because if you're playing with time, anything can happen. So I kept thinking about fantasy writers and science fiction writers who I think must amazing because they, they're breaking all the rules of life all the time. So yeah, I had to think really hard about what could happen. And in the middle of the book, I had this one thing that happens, and I'm so excited for readers to read it and get to that point and go, oh my God. And I was so excited because I went, yes, now I'm finally thinking outside the square. Now I'm finally thinking more broadly. But I still didn't know if I could pull it off. I didn't really know how to end it. I didn't really know how to, But it was very sweet. My son, who's now 24, has always been my first reader from when he was 16, 17. He loves books and loves reading. And he loves time loop books. And he said to me, when I said this idea, he said, oh, that's amazing, Mum. Yeah, that'll be great. You can do it. You should do it. And so all the way through, I was going, I don't know if I can do it. He's like, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And then he read the first version and he said, oh my God, Mum, you did it. And it's even better than I thought it was going to be. And I was
That's so lovely. He's your number one supporter.
I know, isn't he gorgeous?
I love that.
Yeah. So then I went to my publisher and they said, oh, you need to rewrite the ending.
You can always count on them to give you those half truths or to throw a spanner in the works, right? Okay, you've done this now, but now we're going to push you even further. And you've got your local Manly launch on the 30th of June.
Yes.
And I know on your website you've got a list of all the other events that you're going to be launching your book as well, so everyone can find it on your website. Where else can people find you? I think you've obviously on Instagram. Where's the best place to connect?
So Instagram, Petronella McGovern author. I'm there a lot. My website, petronellamcgovern.com.au. And I'll be doing events. I'm going down to Canberra and Melbourne and Ballarat and regional Central West New South Wales and the South Coast and Mid-North Coast.
Everywhere.
Yes, hopefully I'll get everywhere and it'll be lovely. No, and it's a fun one to talk about. I think everyone has, as you say, has those questions. What if I made a different decision? What would my life look like today?
Yeah. And I'm intrigued. I haven't started yet, but I have. It is on my list to read, and I can't wait to read it. But I'm now even more intrigued about the ending, just because of what you've said. So, and I love psychological thrillers. I love romance, and I love psychological thrillers. They're like my two genre that I love reading in. So, I can't wait to dive into it. But I've loved having you on. I could have asked you so many more questions, but I don't want to give too much away in case people are listening to this and still going to your launch and your event. So we'll keep some of it to the actual events that you have coming up. But I love that you've shared your story, so I appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us all today.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.